All right, folks, good morning. It's Wednesday, and we're back again looking ahead because, let's be honest, the season's barely finished, and we're already moving on. That's just how football works. No time to dwell on what's gone. Eyes forward, heads up, transfer season is here, and things are starting to bubble. Today, we've got not one, but two names popping up that might just give us a glimpse into Celtics thinking this summer. And let's be real, after how things went last season, there's a fair bit to sort out. So grab a cup of tea, sit back, because this is going to be a proper deep dive into what could be coming. Let's kick things off with the first name doing. The rounds, Veljko Milosavljevic. Try saying that 5 times fast. A 17-year-old centre-back from Crvena Zvezda. That's Red Star Belgrade to most of us. The Herald ran a story on him linking Celtic directly. Apparently, we've had scouts watching him, and some reports in Serbia have even claimed that we tabled a bid which got knocked back. Now the word is that no bid's actually gone in. Not yet anyway, but the interest is definitely there. And it's not just us keeping an eye on him. Liverpool, Everton and Paris Saint-Germain are all said to be sniffing around. Which, let's be honest, if true, says a lot about the boy's potential. Red Star, for their part, reckon they can squeeze around £9 million out of a deal. Now we all know Celtic's not likely to go near that number. Not unless there's a Van Dijk level guarantee attached. But the angle here might not just be about money. If you're a kid with ambition, what's more appealing? Sitting in the reserves at PSG or Liverpool, or getting actual first-team football at Celtic Park playing in front of 60,000 fans every other week? That could be the difference maker. So who exactly is this Milosavljevic truth? There's not a huge amount of info on him out there, which probably tells us something. It seems like this rise has been pretty quick. He's still 17, just turning 18 soon, and only really broke into Red Star's first team in the second half of the season. Up until October, he was still mostly playing youth football. Then all of a sudden, he's on the bench for Champions League games, and from around February onwards, he's becoming a regular. He didn't actually play in Red Star's Champions League matches, not a single minute, but he was on the bench for their last 2. He did feature in the UEFA Youth League though, so the European experience is already beginning. Looking through what little footage there is, a few things jump out right away. First, the lad's a unit. Easily 6'3", maybe even 6'4". Big presence, strong, still growing possibly. Definitely doesn't look like a 17-year-old on the pitch. He's also not shy with the ball at his feet. You can tell he's been encouraged to play out from the back, though sometimes it feels like he's one misstep away from giving it away. That said, it never actually happens in the clips. There's a bit of a young Ife Ambrose vibe. You know, the mix of composure and chaos that keeps you on your toes. I'm not saying he's Ambrose, but you get that same kind of anything could happen energy. Now, if you're trying to place him in Celtic terms, maybe the more fitting comparison is Jozo Simunovic. Remember him, brought in young big promise, had moments, but never fully delivered on the hype. That's not to say Milosavljevic will follow that same path, but the context is similar. Eastern European defender, highly rated young, seen as a potential future star. And honestly, if the club believes he's the next big thing, if they genuinely think he's got that Virgil van Dijk type trajectory, then they've got to go for him. These are the gambles that pay off when you get them right. What's promising, though, is that we're seeing a centre-back linked this early in the window. That, for me, is a big signal. It shows the club knows that position needs attention, and badly. Let's just take a look at the centre-back situation as it stands. We've got Cameron Carter-Vickers, is no doubt the best defender at the club. Then you've got Austin Trusty, who had a mixed first season. Moments of solid defending, but also more than a few where he looked well off it. Liam Scales featured a lot, but still divides opinion. Then we've got some returning loanies and fringe players, Dane Murray, who Rodgers apparently rates, and then Mike Naraki, Gustav Lagerbielke, and Stephen Welsh. Now, I'll be honest, I actually like Naraki. In my opinion, he might be the second best centre-back we've got behind Carter-Vickers. The problem? I'm not convinced Brendan Rodgers feels the same. Maybe Naraki gets a real shot in preseason and grabs it because when he played late in the season, and yes, I know it was only a couple of matches, he looked assured. He stood up in the derby, looked comfortable at Pittodrie. I'd like to see more of him. Whether Rodgers agrees, time will tell. As for Lagerbielke and Welsh, I just don't see them as part of the future. If the club decides to move them on, and maybe even one more, then that opens up a slot. That's where someone like Milosavljevic could come in. And let's be clear, the idea would be to sign someone who can eventually start, not just sit on the bench. The fear I've got is that we go into next season thinking we can just roll with Trusty and Scales alongside Carter Vickers again. For me, that'd be a mistake. Both have their uses, but as backups, not week in, week out starters if we want to kick on. Trusty in particular is interesting. He wasn't a disaster, let's be fair. There were some solid performances in there. But equally, you can't say he was a game changer. You get the sense that he's one of those players who might look better in his second season. Settled in, familiar with the league, and that's fine. But again, he shouldn't be plan A. We had this same conversation a year ago. We need someone of real quality next to Carter Vickers. The fact we're still saying that now tells you the issue was never properly addressed. The dream scenario, honestly, imagine a back four with Alistair Johnston on the right, Kieran Tierney on the left. More on him in a bit. Carter Vickers on the right side of the central pair, and then one more absolute monster of a defender beside. Him! That's the level we should be aiming for. Whether Milosavljevic is that guy or not, I don't know. But if the scouting team thinks he is, if they genuinely believe he's got that potential, then we should go for it. Because let's face it, we've been crying out for another Carter Vickers type signing for ages. And since I mentioned Tierney, let's move over to the left side, because the second name we've been linked with is Kaido Kuseninoi, a young Japanese left back who's been making waves in Sweden with Djurgården. 19 years old, sharp rise, just like Milosavljevic. He came from the academy of Shonen Belmare back in Japan, didn't even play a senior game, then went on trial in Sweden, got picked up, and then found himself thrust into the spotlight after Djurgården sold their starting left back to Roma. That opening gave Kuseninoi the chance, and he took it with both hands. We'll dive into him properly in the next part, but the point is this. Two young, high-potential players, both in positions where we desperately need reinforcements, and both attracting interest from big clubs across Europe. That can't be a coincidence. There's clearly a strategy forming here. And if Celtic are serious about competing on all fronts next season, not just domestically, but in Europe too, then we need to be aggressive. No more playing it safe, no more half measures. Sign players that make a real difference. Right. So let's get into the second name that surfaced, Kaito Kuseninoi. Now here's a player who on paper at least ticks a lot of the boxes Celtic are looking to fill. Young, energetic, attacking left back, and perhaps most importantly available. He's just 19, playing for Djurgården in Sweden, and from what's being said, he's had a breakout season there. What makes this even more interesting is that the link didn't come through Scottish media or European sources. This came straight from Japan. That always makes you pay attention a bit more because it suggests the interest might be more concrete than just agents talking. Apparently, Paris Saint-Germain are once again being mentioned as having an eye on Kuseninoi. They were also linked to Milosavljevic, mind you, but so were Atalanta and of course ourselves. Now look, just because PSG are linked with a player doesn't mean they're going to pounce, but it does say something about the kind of level people think Kuseninoi is heading towards. And the way Celtic have operated in the Japanese market under Ange and even post-Ange, it wouldn't be a surprise at all if we were trying to get ahead of the curve again here. He's small, no getting around that. Proper diminutive player. Low center of gravity, moves sharp, good acceleration, and has the sort of energy you want from a modern fullback. I watched a bit of footage, as much as you can find, without diving too deep into obscure Scandinavian clips, and what you see is a lad who loves getting forward. He's quick, confident on the ball, and there's that little bit of flair to him. One move in particular where he knocked the ball past the defender and sprinted around the other side to collect it gave me serious flashbacks of Izaguirre in his prime. Not saying he's at that level yet, but you see that style, that aggression, the positive intent. It's there. Kuseninoi hasn't been capped at senior level for Japan yet, but he's been heavily involved in the youth setups. There was even talk about him getting called up for Japan's upcoming fixtures, but manager decided to stick with the squad that had already secured qualification for the World Cup. Bit disappointing if you were hoping to see some of the Japanese boys in action, but that's just how it's gone. Still, the fact that Kuseninoi's name was even in the conversation tells you where he's heading. So where does this all fit into Celtic's plans? Well, if the rumors are true and Greg Taylor is set to move on and everything's pointing that way, then we're left pretty light on the left. Kieran Tierney coming back would be a massive boost, no doubt about it. But we all know Tierney's not going to be playing every game. His injury record, his style of play, the intensity he brings, it's hard to keep that going for 50-yarder. Games a season, so we'll need someone who can step in and either push him or rotate with him without the quality dropping off too much. Kuseninoi could be that guy. He wouldn't be expected to come in and start every match, but he'd almost certainly get minutes, especially if we're in multiple competitions deep into the season. And that in itself makes this a sensible move. You get a talented young player with a lot of upside who's already played a full season in Europe, who's got experience in continental competitions. Joe Gordon made it to the semifinals of the Conference League where they were eventually knocked out by Chelsea. That kind of experience at 19, that's huge. The bigger picture here, though, is that these two links, Milosavljevic and Kuseninoi, represent a kind of shift, or at least a return to a model that has worked well for Celtic in the past. Sign young, develop, give them a platform, then sell. Big! It worked with Van Dijk, Wanyama, Dembele. It's a path we strayed from a bit in recent seasons, opting instead for older players' short-term deals or punts that didn't quite pay off. This feels more deliberate. And let's be honest, the squad needs freshening up. There's no doubt about that. We ended the season with some silverware, sure, but if you watch those last few games, particularly the cup final, it was obvious things had gone a bit stale. Midfield wasn't ticking, creativity dropped, and as good as guys like Bernardo and Engels have been in flashes, we need more than that. You look across the pitch and it's clear, a centre-back to partner Carter Vickers, a left-back to cover all. Challenge Tierney, a midfielder who can unlock a defense, a striker who offers something different, and maybe even another winger with Jota out for a good chunk of next season. That's not 2 or 3 signings, that's 5 or 6, minimum. And that's before we even talk about players leaving, because you know some will. Whether it's fringe players looking for more game time or guys with one foot out the door already, there'll be movement, which is why it's absolutely crucial that the club acts early. No dithering, no waiting around until the last week of August. Get the deals done, get the squad in, give Rodgers time to work with him. When you look back at the 10 signings from this past season, Vinazolo, Schmeichel, Bernardo, Adam, Alex, Vada, Trusty, Engels, McLeod, Jota, Schlupp, none of them were disasters. Let's be fair. But how many actually raised the level of the team? Schmeichel probably came closest, and even he ended the season with that absolute clangor in the final. But overall, it felt like a lot of decent rather than decisive. That's not going to cut it anymore. So if we're being linked with players like Milosavljevic and Kuseninoi, it tells me the scouting department is looking in the right places again. It tells me there's an appetite to get younger, faster, stronger, hungrier, and more importantly, smarter signings that make sense. That fit the system. That raised the standard. Will we get both of them? Probably not. That's just the way these things go. But even just being in the conversation, especially this early, is a step in the right direction. Because the sooner we get things moving, the better the chance we have of building something properly next season. So keep an eye on these names, folks. This summer could be busier than we think. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. In a stunning twist that has set tongues wagging across the length and breadth of Scotland, whispers are growing louder that Rangers midfielder Nicholas Rascin has sensationally signed with arch-rival Celtic. A move of such magnitude, if true, would be nothing short of seismic. A rare and brazen act that could forever etch the Belgian's name into the annals of Old Firm folklore. For better or worse, while there's yet to be any official confirmation from either club, multiple sources close to the Parkhead hierarchy suggest that advanced talks have been quietly ongoing behind closed doors. Some even claim that Rascin has already put pen to paper on a pre-contract agreement with the Hoops, sending shockwaves through the Gers faithful, who until now had viewed the dynamic midfielder as a key pillar for the future at Ibrox. The very notion of a player crossing the Old Firm divide is enough to set pulses, racing and ignite fierce debate in pubs and terraces from Glasgow's East End to the blue strongholds of Govan. Fans will not need reminding of the infamous cases of Mo Johnston or Kenny Miller, players whose decisions to don both colours turned them into iconic, albeit controversial, figures in Scottish football lore. Rascin, who joined Rangers from Standard Liège in January 2023 and quickly endeared himself with his tireless work rate and combative style, has been a consistent presence in the light blues midfield engine room. His potential departure, let alone to Celtic, would represent a gut-wrenching blow for Rangers' ambitions, as well as a stunning coup for Brendan Rodgers' side as they continue to assert domestic dominance. It's understood that Celtic's interest in Rascin has been long-standing, viewing him as an ideal fit for their high-tempo, possession-based style of play. With his contract situation at Ibrox reportedly complicated and murmurs of discontent regarding game time and role within the squad, the move, though extraordinary, is not entirely beyond the realm of possibility. As with all such dramatic rumors, the truth remains elusive, shrouded in speculation and conjecture. But one thing is for certain. The mere prospect of Rascin swapping the royal blue for green and white hoops has added yet another explosive chapter to the eternal saga that is the Old Firm rivalry. For now, Scotland watches and waits with bated breath. Hello, fan! Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.